But I want to encourage you all to go on the site and see these things. So it is a simple brochure. It speaks about the different steps in land preparation for your home garden. If you're planting in the soil, you will have a few additional steps, it says. Step 1 is to determine the soil type, whether you have sand, clay, or loam. I'm really rushing through this piece because you will go back and look at it yourself. Step 2 is to clear the area. Step 3 is to observe the drainage pattern so that your beds could kind of conform to the drainage so you don't encourage erosion. Step 4 will be to prepare the planting area. Step 5 is to determine if you are planting in individual holes or just planting across the bed. Step 6 is to make drains. Step 7 is to plant your seedlings. What I like most about this, there's a little video which I'll play for you. Runs just for about 3 minutes or so. Tell me if you are hearing. I need to know to show that you're hearing when I press play. I am not hearing on my end. Are you all hearing? Could I get a thumbs up or something that you all are hearing?
No, nothing yet.
Volume is off on this. Let me start it over. I'll start it over. It's actually 4 minutes long.
Welcome to the Home Gardening Program. Do you want your plants to look as healthy as these? Then you must prepare the land properly to receive them. Let us start by clearing the land, removing weeds, observing drainage to orient the beds, then loosening the soil before forming beds, and preparing for planting.
Clear the selected area of all undesirable materials such as weeds, large stones, blocks, galvanized, logs, and containers. Remember, weeds will compete with your plants for nutrients and encourage pest and disease. You can use a weed whacker, a brushing cutlass, or other tools to remove the weeds. Avoid using chemicals. Let's help preserve the environment.
How should you orient the beds? Whether the land is flat or sloping, plan the layout of your beds to prevent soil loss.
Is everyone hearing? I lost audio. Leon?
No, I'm not hearing. He muted himself, so we can't really play.
And
Do I need to go back?
a little.
Okay, sometimes under more, I need to go in and share some. Tell me if you're hearing now.
And that you plant vegetables
Yes.
and food crops or fruit trees into individual holes.
Let us look at planting on beds. The bed can be of any length, but the width should allow you to reach the center comfortably. This will allow for easy management of the crops. Now that you've decided on the size of the bed, make the drains at least 20 centimeters deep to remove excess water. When making drains, remove the soil from the area and put it on the bed. If the land drains freely, you can form a flat bed. In areas where soils do not drain readily, camber the surface of the bed to form a turtleback. Spread cured manure, organic matter, or compost evenly over the entire bed and mix it into the soil. The bed is now ready for planting.
Where beds are not prepared, you must prepare individual planting holes. Let us see how this is done. Remove enough soil to make the hole sufficiently deep and wide to cater for the selected planting material. Add 1 part of cured manure, compost, or organic matter to 2 parts of the soil which was removed and mix. Place the mixture into the hole. The hole is now ready for planting. When you prepare your land properly, you would give your crop the best start to grow and produce well. For further information and advice, contact your agricultural extension officer.
Okay. Am I still on share screen? I think we have enough participants now. I will start with our topic for this evening, which is vegetable production, grow boxes, and grow bags. Okay. Today's topics will cover the importance of grow box or grow bags, design and costing, choosing and managing vegetables, and challenges to grow box systems. You will have this recorded so you can go through it, but take some little notes of areas of concern that you would want more information on or that wasn't as clear as you would like it to be. What's the importance of grow boxes? Well, it provides fresh, nutritious food for you. It improves dietary habits and reduces the risk of obesity and obesity-related diseases. Because once you have vegetables home, it means you could eat them at will. It ensures community food security. Especially, I'm dealing with a company overseas, and they tell me that they have a further lockdown in their village. People cannot enter the village and people cannot leave because of the upsurge in the COVID. So it's amazing, it's a pandemic, it's experienced throughout the world. Today in the news, they said we had a higher rate than normal back to like the month of June with 512 or so new cases and 12 deaths. So these are measures that allow us to survive while we go through things like that. It promotes relaxation and encourages physical activity. You would observe whenever you start to deal with the soil and a plant, your mind is focused on it so much that all the cares of life leave you for a while. When you leave that garden and you go back to do something else, you discover you have a clear mind. You are more receptive to whatever life throws at you. The misbehavior around, the noise of the neighborhood, the children, the demands of life. So it promotes relaxation. It builds better community spirit because it is expected out of this program, as we said at the start, that you exchange vegetables with others in the group. And the group has reached more than 60. I've seen it reach, 76. It builds better community spirit and encourages local business. Indeed, as we complete the course, we'll do a session on entrepreneurial possibilities that exist. Simple things like making your own pepper sauce and branding it for Princess Town. I can't recall seeing anything on the shelf that says Princess Town pepper sauce, or anything like that, Princess Town chocolate. And Princeton has been a food basket in Trinidad for many, many years. There's no reason why it cannot come out again and make some new products. Not just Princeton, but all the villages in Trinidad and Tobago. Challenges. One has to be cognizant of the startup costs. So this training we're doing is not necessarily designed to make you just spend money. Yeah? We're trying to economize while we do it. But beware of the startup costs and your payback period. When you look at your overall cost and you're doing 100 lettuce, let's say, every 2 months or 3 months, then you know for the year you'll have 4 crops, 400 lettuce. Find out how much you're going to sell your lettuce for, because you're going to eat some, sell some, give away some. And then you will see what is your payback period. Local environmental factors are important. You know, if you have too many grasshoppers, you got to wait till they pass before you plant. Grow boxes require good management practice. The moment you slack off with whatever you're doing, things happen. And then it calls for reliable, trustworthy, and open-minded people. Reliable, trustworthy, and open-minded persons. And I think all of you qualify in this category. So, trying to change my slide. Some business considerations. Economic aspects must be worked out before starting up. Okay? So I want you to bear in mind that you will start small, but as you experience it, you can decide how to expand and even expand into a business. You could expand both from the perspective of doing more than one kind of crop, like you would start off with lettuce, and as you get the hang of it, you decide lettuce and pak choy. Then you could go lettuce, pak choy, tomatoes, peppers, and you increase like that. Then you go into broccoli and cabbage and cauliflower and so on. You must also determine what vegetables would be grown and where can the vegetables be sold. Doesn't make sense if you produce and you have all of that stuff on your hand, there's nowhere to market or to give away or to use. Some of the characteristics of the site that you're going to select for your grow box: it must be close to utilities. We did this in part 1, where you need a good regular supply of water. Don't plan to use canal water. You have all kinds of pollutants in canal water, including disease organisms. Sometimes you may need electricity. Not always, but sometimes you may. I know Princeton is hilly, so depending on where you have your tank of water, you may need a pump to pump it to the site where you have the garden. Just bear that in mind, although you can use the logistics of gravity. Orientation of the boxes is important, meaning the direction of the flow of the boxes. Avoid steep slopes. Avoid poorly drained areas, especially areas prone to flooding. You wouldn't want to plant in a little valley in the back of your house where 3 times a year it floods and everything gets washed away. Or if the soil is slipping constantly. One morning you wake up and the entire grow box is gone. So bear those things in mind. These are some dimensions of grow boxes. We look at 3 meters by 1.2 meters. In imperial measure, that would be 10 feet long by 4 feet wide. We tend to stick to 4 feet wide because the average human hand, while standing in the drain on the side of your grow box, can reach across 1.5 feet to 2 feet, so that from either side you will be able to meet the middle plant, depending on where that middle plant is. If it's a little way from the middle, it's easier. But you don't want to now jump into the grow box. Each grow box must be the same size. It's recommended. It's recommended. I mean, if it varies a bit, nothing is wrong. The picture shows a churchyard setting with some grow boxes, and you could see it's well laid out. It allows for someone to pass with a wheelbarrow. It allows for proper cultivation within the box. You could use a grow bag. I don't recommend it, but know it exists. Grow bags are easy for predial larceny. Someone could pass, take those bags, throw them into their car, and be off with them. And you would have lost your investment, at least in the bag. And these bags are not always available. The fabric tend to be on the expensive side, but it is very useful if you have an enclosed area and you have a watchdog or something. It's easy to maneuver. Ideal for a bigger plant like a tomato or pepper. This is an indoor grow box system. I saw this at Point Lisas. It was well done, and they were doing some lovely crops in there. They were able to control the temperature using those fans, but that is more expensive. You're looking at a higher expense once you go indoor like that. Nothing is wrong with being outdoor. That's a common outdoor grow box. You can see it's more than a year old. The bricks are a little bit out of line. You can see one or two bricks a little sunken. But basically, that is what it is. You could have one, you could have two, you could have many. You could grow other things around it. Like you see the banana there, and cassava, and cocoa, and so on. This is another one where they have put some BRC wire around it. The wire is to prevent dogs and other animals from going in, and sometimes it is used by the vine crops. They may climb on it, like if you had cucumbers, but particularly if you had lettuce and pak choy, you discover that even putting wire at the top is important. Why? Because birds fly in and peck off some juicy parts of your lettuce, and it's a way of getting rid of the bird attack. This is another one. In this grow box they do inside, and you can actually fill the holes in the concrete blocks and plant like some other seasoning herb. You could do shadow benny, for instance. Okay, here you have a grow box made out of wood. If you have wood at your disposal, some sawmill that has the face of the logs cut off and selling cheap or discarded, you could use those. Doesn't have to be fancy, it's just to keep the soil in there. Here you see another one, it's mixed lettuce, pak choy, cabbage, and chives. All in one box. What will happen is those plants that are planted closely, like lettuce and pak choy, will be harvested early. And the crops that will take a little longer, like 60 to 90 days, then it gets some time to fill out into the box. This is using another material. That's a rubber belt that was discarded, and the person decided, wait, I could use this for a grow box. Sure, not a problem. These grow boxes at a government office, you see, they're painted, whitewashed, whatever, looking really nice and will last longer. It's even cemented, mortar on the outside to make it look pretty. It's up to you. You don't have to spend a lot of money on grow boxes. Some other grow boxes, you could use plastic containers, discarded containers, old fridges. You could even use tires. See some more grow boxes there. So you're not restricted to using the concrete blocks. There are all kinds you can use. You see how the workman can use his barrow between the grow boxes to maneuver when he has to change crops and he wants to add some more manure and so on. You could see the use of wire fences and protection from pradial larceny, and they're using some expensive discarded tubs and plastic containers. Here you see families at work mixing their soil. I want to urge the church and those of you in this group to create that kind of camaraderie and closeness and togetherness, where as a team you could come together to do things. I really conducted a program like this in Tobago, in which they call it Lenhan. I don't know if that term is all the way in Prince's tongue. Lenhan. So if you had 10 families, the 10 families come together on a Sunday and help out one family to develop their box. The next Sunday, they go to a next family. But be sure, if they come and help you, you must help them. The worst thing to do is to lose trust, where 10 families come together, help family A, and when his family A turn to go to family B, he says he's feeling sick. You have to make sure you go or send someone to represent you, okay? But that's how some of these things could be accomplished. What is a good seedling? We did this in our first session, and I'm repeating it. Seedling must be healthy looking. They must be visibly free of pests and diseases. If there's some disease on it, don't plant it out in your box. They must be upright. Roots should be white in color, and the rooting medium must be moist. Okay, we did this before. Look at nice, healthy lettuce seedling. See the roots? White. Plant upright, looking strong. No diseases, no damage. And that is what you want. Here again, healthy tomato seedlings. See that white color root? If it was brown or black, know something is wrong. It's starting to get sick from the roots. Get rid of it. Don't introduce it to your grow box. Okay, some more challenges. Rona is trying to get in. I don't know why she's dropping out. Determine and outline the main area. Okay, whether you outline it with bricks, blocks, concrete, slabs, wood, whatever. Generally, keep the entire area clean and tidy. Determine the size and number of grow boxes you're going to do. Consider where the grow box, the walk areas, and other features will be. Where you put in your tank. Where I was up on the mountain, I had my tanks next to the garage. I had the grow box at a lower level. So as I open the tank, on the lines, they flow straight to the grow box. No pump required. Undertake any infrastructural works that needs to be done. Prepare the grow box, then add soil. Determine the type and number of crops. Simple, very simple. I think I posted this evening on the chat, on the group chat. These are the different vegetables you're going to consider. This is the approximate distance between the plants in centimeters and in inches. So for corn, it'll be 30 to 45 centimeters apart, which is 1 foot to 1.5 feet apart, 12 inches to 18 inches. You can see okra is the same thing. You can see pumpkin, it's very different. And on the right, the average number of weeks to first harvest. So if you planted, let's say, lettuce in the middle there will take 4 to 5 weeks before harvest. So you can't play around with lettuce. Make sure you know who's going to eat all those lettuce in 4 weeks' time after you plant. Else they begin to get overgrown, they begin to bolt. Bolting is when the head of flower begins to emerge. It grows up quickly, tall. It develops the milk in it, and the milk makes it bitter. So nobody could eat them. So make sure you know after week 4 who's going to get those lettuce. You have to decide if it's going to Pastor Joshua for the church pantry, if it's going to the community, some poor people you want to support, or if it's an exchange, peppers for lettuce, lettuce for pak choy, as the case may be. Okay? So that's a good guide for you. A little bit on the soil. We did this in the first lesson, but the topsoil is very, very important. Some people scrape off all their topsoil and then regret it. The topsoil is like the most nutrient-rich part of your soil. First, you have humus, and then your A horizon, which is called topsoil, rich in humus and minerals. Then your horizon B, which is poor in humus but rich in minerals. And then you have your weathered rock, your C horizon, little or no plant or animal life. And then you have your bedrock. Up at the top too, you have a lot of things living in the soil that are useful. You may get crickets. Those are not so friendly. They cut your young plants, but you get a lot of earthworms. When you put in a lot of chemicals in your soil, you kill the earthworms. When you add manure, you support the microflora life, it's called. And that microflora in your soil helps to increase the nutrients and nutrient availability for your plants. When people have soils that seem to be rich but not giving the nutrition to the plants, is because they've done so much chemical addition to the soil that they've killed out the soil life. As I said, some of it would be dangerous, but most of it is extremely useful for your soil. An ideal soil will have some air, some water, minerals, most of all, some organic matter. When you burn your land, for instance, if you weed and leave all the weeds on the land and then set fire to clear everything, you are burning away the organic matter. And the organic matter is responsible for cation exchange, meaning the minerals have a higher possibility of entering the plant. It's easily exchangeable. It also harbors more minerals when you have organic matter, and it keeps the moisture in the soil. Okay, so soil organic matter consists of plant and animal residues in various stages of decomposition. It improves the physical structure of the soil. Without going into a lot of science of the physical structure of the soil, know there's something called the physical structure that is improved just because you have organic matter. It increases water infiltration. It keeps your soil moist. It supplies the plant with nutrients. And examples of organic matter will be rotted manure. Observe we said rotted manure here. Dry leaves and branches. So don't go burning all your leaves and burning all your branches. What I do here, my mom has concreted our backyard, but we have some trees. I got a layer of leaves so thick, and when I move the layer, I see earthworms fixing up, making humus, which I could now add to my crops. So I'm not gonna take those leaves and just burn them, right? One note on dry leaves and branches. Some people do what is called mulching, and they put green material, freshly cut leaves and branches and sticks to cover the soil. What that does, it has to pull nitrogen from the soil. So as it pulls nitrogen from the soil, the plant is starved of nitrogen. Just bear that in mind. So it's better if you have it cured and rotted and then add it to the soil. If for some reason you must add it to the soil, for whatever reason, some people use it for aesthetics. They have these fancy pieces of wood that has been sold, wood chips. So around your plant, it looks nice mahogany color, red wood chips, and other colors that they sell in the store. They rob the plant of nitrogen. You'll have to give that plant some additional nitrogen. Fertilizing. Use of compost or organic matter is recommended, especially if you want organic crops. But sometimes in this world where things have been depleted from the soil from years of use or bad treatment, we recommend that you use some fertilizer, but make sure your fertilizer has some micronutrients. Do not fertilize between mid-morning and mid-afternoon. Why? Because the pressure on the plants through transpiration is the term used for when plants perspire. Humans perspire, plants transpire. They transpire a lot between mid-morning and mid-afternoon. So if you added fertilizers at that time, it will burn the plants. Okay? Always make sure when you add fertilizers that you also water the crop. These are 17 essential nutrients for plant growth. They are divided into the major ones on the left and secondary nutrients, and then micronutrients or trace elements on the right. You don't have to learn off this, but it's useful for you to know the three major ones are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. In that order, they're required for leaf growth, shoot growth, and fruit development, right? So you have the leafy growth first, root development, and then fruit development. Secondary nutrients like calcium and magnesium, they are important for the fruit development. Sometimes people say their fruits crack or it's not as tasty. It's because it's lacking in calcium or magnesium. And then you have your micronutrients. You'll be surprised what these micronutrients do. They bring out the best out of your fruits, especially molybdenum and boron and zinc. And those things end up in those same fruits or vegetables that you eat. And it becomes more available to your body when these things are in your vegetables or your fruit. So bear that in mind. When you buy these things, it only enhances the final produce that you're going to harvest. Here are some fertilizer ratios that help you to understand them. If a fertilizer has high nitrogen, remember it's NPK, so the first figure will be high, like 4600 or 301010. Okay? High potash will be like your 105210 or 122412 or 83216. Where do you need high potash? You need high potash where root growth is important. Your nitrogen is for your leafy growth, your potash is for your root growth. And then high potassium, that's for flowers and fruits. So if your plant is not for flowers and fruits, you don't need a high K. K is potassium, so 12, 12, 17 will be good for fruiting. So if you have a crop and it's producing flowers and all the flowers are dropping off, it probably needs some additional K. So you could side dress the plant with some 12, 12, 17. Okay, and then you have balanced or equal amounts of NPK like 10, 10, 10 or 20, 20, 20. Those are found in some foliar fertilizers that you can buy. Okay, Nutrex is one of them. These are some examples. I'm not recommending any particular one, but just to show the example. Nutrient Express 44127. Very little leaf growth. This is later on when you want roots and fruits. Then 15,912. That's for some leafy growth and for some fruit growth. Osmocote. Here's Miracle Growth 24,816. So push some leaf growth and then push some fruit growth. Not so much roots. You see, some plants you don't require a whole lot of roots. Then you have Technigrow 94515. You also have another version of it, 153015. And from the numbers, you're going to tell what is going to happen to the plant. Okay? And they're used in small quantities, 24/7/15. High leaf growth, good for flowers and fruits. Okay? By the way, that last slide, I've gone past it. Let me see if I could go back. Just want to go back to this. Because it's so high in N, it's used a lot in lawn and turf plant as a turf plant food. Okay? This is a characteristic mark you get in tomatoes at the bottom of it. It's called the blossom end part of the tomato, and it's called blossom end rot. We know that calcium, if it's lacking in the soil, it results in this. So that if you're planting tomatoes and you suspect the soil might be lacking in calcium, you make sure you have a calcium blend in your fertilizer. Water management. So water crops as required. One watering early in the morning, but not later than 4 p.m. When you water them after 4 p.m., it encourages fungus development in the night. Do not overwater. Keep the soil moist. You can take a handful of the soil, squeeze it in your hand. If water is falling from that ball of soil, then that soil has too much water. The soil must be just moist enough that when you curl your hand, when you close your hand with the soil in it, it will produce a lump. But you should not be able to squeeze out the water. If the soil breaks down and crumbles, then it doesn't have enough water. That's a good guide. Okay? Underwatering gives you slow leaf growth. You find you could see through the leaves, some spots on the leaves develop. You have premature dropping of the flowers. So not all the time the premature dropping is because of the nutrient that is missing, but because you're underwatering. Or the leaves begin to get brown, yellow, they curl, they begin to die. What happens in overwatering? You see on the blocks and on the ground, moss is developing, or even on the soil, moss will be developing. Water at the bottom of the grow box settling, and you see it oozing out the side. The leaves looking brown and rotten and water soaked and falling off the plant. Too much water. Be careful. Sometimes people say, if I water today enough, then I could skip tomorrow. Or I could give them some extra water on Friday because I'm not watering on Saturday. Try not to do that, please. If you water Friday evening, then you must get up early Sunday morning and water. Okay? Or you could water Saturday evening, Saturday night, but don't drench the plant with water. That is not required. Some people feel watering the plant mean bathing the plant. You give the plant a little bath, and that will cool down the plant. That is not necessary. Okay? I see Ava smiling. You do that, Ava? You don't have to bathe down the plant. Okay. Water imbalance. Always keep the soil moist, that is neither too wet nor too dry. We just said, if you take a lump of the soil and you squeeze it, if it breaks up into particles in your hand, it's too dry. If it forms a lump, it's just wet enough. If water leak out from your hand, then you have overwatered. Okay? Which vegetables may be grown? These are easy crops to grow in your grow box. Tomatoes, okra, melangine, pimento peppers, pak choy and lettuce. If you have a deeper box, like a grow bag, you could do ginger. I saw somebody showing off their ginger on the chat. Or turmeric, also known as saffron in Trinidad. Those are wonderful to keep. And aloe vera. Those are wonderful things to do in grow bags. You can move them around as you please. Okay? I hope to see the class doing some of these. Cultural practices are some things you do on an everyday basis in your garden. Okay? Establishing your drains, observing your plant spacing. Don't overcrowd, but don't overspace. It's called wasting your space. Establishing the plants, staking and tying, especially with tomatoes. You drive a stake on the ground, you tie it as it grows so that it doesn't fall down and you lose the tomatoes. Fertilizing water, and there's something called fertigation, which is when you have the pipes delivering both the water and the fertilizer. That's a little bit complex. We'll do that in a separate class when you get accustomed to doing your grow boxes. Some other cultural practices, mulching. Now, mulching is not the same as molding. Mulching is when you cover the soil with something. You could cover with plastic, you could cover with paper, you could cover with wood, you could cover with wood chips, with leaves from broken branches. What that does, it keeps down the weeds, so you have less weeding to do. And it also conserves the moisture in the soil. That is what mulching is about. Pruning is when you selectively move certain stems. And I wouldn't try to teach that here, just bear it in mind. One of these days we'll do pruning of a tomato plant. I know there are some of you who would have heard about pruning in cocoa. And in any plant, when you remove a part of the stem, something happens next. And that's what you need to know. What happens when I cut it? It's almost like going to the barber and you shave your head like me, but you want to have an afro next week for a wedding. By then it wouldn't grow. So when you're pruning, you have to be mindful of what you're doing. Pest and disease control. And I want to introduce you to a term. It's shortened IPM. It means integrated pest management. It means you're taking a number of approaches to managing pest and disease. Not everything you see do you have to start controlling. Okay? Life is such that a certain percentage of things are allowed. Okay, everything have to exist. So yes, I know in your learning, you have to take a picture of a spot you saw on one leaf in your whole yard, and you want to know what that spot is. One of the safest things is to just remove that leaf, burn the leaf. I recommend you put it in a bag and put it in your microwave so it kills all the spores, and put it in your garbage. All right? Don't go spraying every time you see a spot. Don't go in the chemical shop and say, I have a brown spot, this brown spot in my lettuce. What should I do? And they sell you a bottle of something to go and kill yourself. Okay? Pre and post harvest practices, that is what you do before harvest and after harvest. That allows your fruits and your vegetables to last longer. One of the things that you must note is it is always better to harvest in the morning, early in the morning, when the fruit has all its juices or the lettuce is full with juice, nice and plump. You want to harvest when the crop is at its best. You also want to take that crop that you harvest out of the sun. So you don't harvest it, rest it in the car seat and go and do your work for the day. You put it in a cool room. You want to make sure it's clean. There are no worms on the base of the lettuce, no konguri and that kind of thing, no soil. You want to clean it, wash it and put it away. Keep it in a cool environment. You want to store it where you know it's going to be safe. Okay, storage of produce. And there's some unwise practices. Some people who still use chemicals, you might be tempted to store your produce near your chemical bottle, or you have a bunch of bhaji and it's stored with your spray can. Don't do those things. Those are no-nos. Okay? Or some people spray because they see some worms and they go back in the evening or the next day and harvest. You must make sure you observe what is called a waiting period. But I know you're not going to use chemicals or dangerous chemicals. So just be aware that there are some unwise practices. Don't go pushing your fingers into the soil everywhere. Know that soil carry other organisms that could be harmful to you, especially if you use manure. If you get cut on your finger while your hand is in the soil, you could get tetanus. Or who knows, some other organisms might invade the scratch in your hand and do something that is not good for your health. So wear a pair of gloves or use the little hand fork, hand shovel, and so on, especially if you're using manuals, okay? All right, moving on. Some crop characteristics that you must note. The size of your plant, the shape of your plant, the spacing you have used, something about the bearing habit. You might discover, I'll tell you, a good friend of mine did 80 acres of okros to export. She didn't tell me how much she was doing, but then she finally found out she couldn't harvest the okros in time because every 2 days, okros were maturing in the field. She was spending more time trying to harvest and trying to pack this container for export. It's called the expansion trap, but just note, get into knowing your crop, because if you don't know every 2 days you have pimento peppers that are ripe and ready, you wouldn't go back and harvest. See? The life of the plant, the pests and diseases associated with it. You might see something in the plant that's totally harmless, but you might think it's going to do harm. Somebody sent me a picture saying they saw a butterfly on their tomato plant and they want to know what to spray for the butterfly. So hold it. That's a friendly butterfly. Don't kill it. Or it might be an unfriendly one. If it's just one butterfly, you might want to catch the butterfly, play with it, do whatever you want to do with it. But don't go spraying just because you saw one butterfly. Okay, and of course, the watering regime for each type of plant vary. Just like some people get more thirsty than others, some plants get more thirsty than others. Aspect of the product to note, it's useful to weigh a product, to know the color that is expected from the product. There's some lettuce like Mignonette brands that gives you a brown color leaf. You must know that. The texture of it, the shelf life. In other words, I harvest this lettuce. By Sunday, it would no longer be okay if I didn't store it properly. That kind of thing. The cooking qualities, how long it takes to cook it, pests and diseases. So we're not going to learn all these things here in one session, but just note that. So as you plant your plant, whether it's a tomato or pepper or an okra or bhaji or spinach or lettuce, know that there are some peculiarities about each of these crops. Now, these are some things you must take for your records: the date that you sow the seed, the date that it germinated. It gives you practice. You might plant a seed and 3 days later you see it germinated. Or it might be 5 days later, or 7 days, or 12 days. Or it should take 5 days and it's now day number 12 and you didn't see nothing. I was speaking with someone from this group who said she planted, I think it was pigeon peas, and none of them germinated. Those seeds were bad. Okay, but you got to know what's happening. The date you transplant your seedlings, the date you saw your first flowering, the date you saw your first buds, the first mature fruits, your main crop and the last crop, how long it takes to get that last crop. Some of you might be engaging in giving your first fruits to Pastor Joshua or to the church or to the poor. You decide, but you must take some notes so that you can measure what you're doing. Crop harvest data. Along the same vein, number of fruits per plant, the number of fruits per kilogram. If you had 10 fruits to give you a kilogram and another variety give you 5 fruits to the kilogram, which fruit is bigger? Anybody? Let's open your mic and tell me. If you had 10 fruits per kilogram and another variety give you 5 fruits per kilogram, which is the bigger fruit?
5 fruit.
5.
5 is the bigger one? That is correct. If it takes 5 people to fill up an elevator, and a different kind of people, it takes 10 of them to fill the elevator. No, those 5 people are really big. Yes, 5 is correct. So sometimes you get extra big fruits. So then you get a premium when you sell extra large tomatoes, salad tomatoes, right? Average length per fruit, average width per fruit. Those are some of the things you get your children interested in doing. Let them measure. Okay, total yield, total marketable yield, because not all that bear would be good. You might get a distorted fruit, you might get a fruit with a bird peck, you might cut off the section with the bird peck and eat the rest, Check how much is your total losses as well. Harvest early in the morning. Determine maturity by size, color, shape, age, and a gentle touch. Never a big, heavy touch. Use a clipper or a nipper. Try to keep piece of the stem attached to the vegetables. Why? If you break off a tomato and left the stem on the plant, that scar, the top of the tomato, will begin to rot. So the shelf life is reduced. So always leave a piece. Plants like celery, parsley, and chive, carefully remove the outermost leaves. So if you had shadow benny, you could harvest the outermost leaves and leave the innermost leaves to mature and get bigger. So you could have 10 small cans, 10 small pots, each with let's say a shadow benny or a chive. And you just break off or cut off the outer leaves and use, and they're still alive and producing. Just make sure you feed them. Some harvest considerations. What should be done with the produce harvested? Remember, we are saying provide or donate to the most needy in the community. Barter among the members. Sell to members of the community. They get to know you. Do you know that's an easy way to talk about the gospel? If you want to talk to the gospel about somebody in the community and you keep supplying them with good, fresh, pesticide-free produce, one day you'll be able to tell them about God, But if you walk up to them just and say, I want to tell you about God today, they think, oh, they're a mad woman or what? So developing relationships, that is what this is all about as well. Encourage community business. As I said before, you all could end up choosing some crops where there are about 100 of you in Princestown doing that crop. You decide to take your produce and make a pepper sauce. Who would have ever thought you would have a pimento sauce? There's a pimento sauce on the market now. No longer you have to stand up with a pimento and cut it and open and remove the seeds and put it in the blender. It's available as a sauce. So think about some things you can do. So if you had 100 people supplying, you come up with your little processing plant, and you bottle it and label it, and you make some money. Yeah? Because when it's bottled, it can be stored. If it's fresh, the shelf life is only about 5 days to 10 days. Store if possible as a food security measure. A little word on pest and disease management. Learn to identify the pest. What is a thrips? What is an aphid? The batchak, the mealybug, the beetles, the white flies. Learn to identify them. Learn how to control them. There's an easy control measure. Plant some marigolds and rotate your crops. Don't plant the same crop over and over and over. The pest will build up. Each crop has its own pest. Learn to identify the diseases too, especially the fungus. It's easy to control. Prune out the leaves that are damaged. Remove them from the field. Allow for good air movement throughout the crop canopy. So if you had, let's say, lettuce and pak choi and some celery and the whole bed covered green and thick, the air doesn't get to pass through. So you've got to leave some space. When the air doesn't pass through, the fungus deposit, the spores deposit on the leaves, they germinate in the night with the humidity and the moisture, and then they manifest themselves. Okay? This is the mealybug. Take a look at it. So when next you see the white stuff on your leaves, look at them and see this characteristic pattern. Mealybugs, aphids, you see them at the tips of your branches, especially if you have crotons and palms, you get it on soft, juicy crops, right? You see it on your citrus, they love citrus. And then you have the scale insects, looks like it's covered with a scale. Know that there are mites as well. A mite is not an insect. And you could tell because they have 8 legs, and all insects have 6 legs. Okay? Mites belong to the same group of creatures like ticks and crabs and so on. I think I'll be correct with crabs there. Batchak. Anytime you see this pattern on your leaf, the batchak was at work. They don't bite in the middle of the leaf. They go to the end and they do that curvy kind of finish that tells you there are batchaks around and they like nice juicy leaves. That's your ladybug there. Ladybugs are friendly. They always carry those spots on their backs like a polka dot thing, and they have different colors, but they're brightly colored, and they eat aphids, so don't kill them. Now when your aphids suck your plants, when it passes through their guts and they pass it out in their stool, it comes out as a nice, sweet, sticky liquid. It's called honeydew. And fungus love the honeydew. So the fungus grows on the honeydew and produces this black covering called sooty mold. You'll be surprised how soap water will get rid of everything there. But you got to spray on top and below. Don't wait until you get sooty mold. Spray the insects so you don't get to the sooty mold stage. At the sooty mold stage, you also get ants. They come to take some of the insects and some of the honeydew as well. Sometimes you see these things looking like trails on your leaves. You see it a lot on tomatoes. Sometimes you may get it on lettuce. That's a leaf miner. A leaf miner is an insect which in its immature stage, they live inside the leaf. And they just travel through the leaf all over eating the green stuff. So when they eat the green stuff, they leave the white trails. All you have to do, as soon as you see them beginning, clip that little piece of leaf off. The plant ain't gonna die. But what you will save yourself from is extra leaf miners emerging as adults to go and lay on the rest of your crop. But when you clip it off, just don't throw it in the bin, because who knows, the adult might be ready to emerge and come back on your plant. I like to microwave them, for those of you who are microwave, or tie it in a bag and put it in the garbage. Okay, tie it in the bag and leave it in the sun for a while. They'll die with high temperature. White flies, those things could be crazy. This is an enlarged picture on the left. That's how they look in real on the right. Okay, they always hide under the leaf and they keep sucking the plant of all the nutrients that the plant should be using to make food for you. This is the fungal disease. It's no particular spot on the fruit, but they're all black and have some circular marks. It's called anthracnose. You see it a lot in pawpaw these days. A copper fungicide can be used if you've seen attacks of it. I could tell you that a copper fungicide is safe as a beginner. It's safe for you and it's safe on the food. Copper fungicides are still accepted in organic agriculture. If you're doing certified organic agriculture, copper fungicides are accepted. We still use it in cocoa, for instance, for organic cocoa. But if you go above that and start to use other kinds of fungicides, you're getting into poisonous substances that may not be so good for your body. Okay? That's a caterpillar there on the corn. You see there? Curled corn airworm. You know, we call everything worms. What's a caterpillar? It will emerge into a little butterfly and come back and lay. Okay? And then you have slugs. If your place is too wet, it harbors the slugs and then they find your lettuce. Copper could be used for that. Celery leaf spot and downy mildew. You see, if your celery leaf spot is starting to look like this and it's all over your bed, root up all them celery and plant something different. Don't try to fight it. Those things carry so many spores, it will be present in your area for a while. But if you sun out the bed thoroughly, you'll be getting rid of a lot of these spores before it become overwhelming. So that's my presentation today. I want to encourage you to start your grow box. If you do not have the investment to buy concrete blocks to start to build it, that's not a problem. You could still do something in your yard. Just know you have all the problems that go with your soil, because in a grow box, you're going to make up these soils. It's an artificial medium. You're going to mix your manure, your limestone, well, we don't have bagasse anymore, but you could use sawdust and that kind of thing, and trash, some leaves and twigs and all of that. And make sure you use your sand, of course. I urge you to go to the Ministry of Agriculture website. There's a beautiful presentation on grow boxes. The last group I had, I'd encourage Alpha Senon. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Alpha farmer, Alpha Senon from Superior. He has a grow box that he is making and selling. I will send you that literature in case you want to make your own grow box. Some people are able to get pallets and make their own grow boxes. It's cheap because you get the pallets almost free. But it calls for some skills. You get the man in your house to get a saw and saw them down to size and nail them back up. You get a lovely grow box. If not, you could use your plant bags or your plant pots, discarded receptacles, old fridges, tires, that kind of thing. All right, I've said a whole lot. It is to guide you into action. I know you are setting your seedlings. Just remember, if you don't want to do a grow box, it's totally okay. You could do raised beds outside. Just know it calls for some extra treatment. You may have to apply some limestone. We will add some notes on the site for you all to review. Be in touch with your agricultural officer. They are extremely helpful. You live in a region where you have some very cooperative officers, even officers who have retired. They're very helpful, and you'll get a lot of hints from them. Okay? Okay, everybody?
Yes, sir.
How are we doing for time? We still have time, man.
Yes, yes. Hi. Mr. Gracia?
Hi, Miss Christine.
Yes. I started a grow box and I transplanted some string beans. Let me put on my right. All right. I transferred some string beans, but the grow box, the wood I got is like 5 inches around the diameter. So I wanted to know how deep string beans go because they burst real fast. So I wanted to know if that will be enough. I put polythene plastic at the bottom, was to the front of my yard, where I started my lawn I take. And I made this. Will that be enough, you think, for those string beans?
And you say it is 5 inches deep.
Yeah, yes, 5 inches deep. I put polythene plastic I bought in the hardware, and I put this, some strong wood, a sawmills with me, and I expensive, but I made it up. So I wanted to know if that is enough. You think the string beans? I transplanted a whole, like 2 rows of them.
Well, I don't want to burst your bubble, but for string beans that will go longer than for a
And
longer
5
period than a lettuce or pak choy, you need some more root room. It would be
oh,
nicer if it was deeper. The recommended grow box is 18 inches deep.
uh, that is what I had. So, okay. I only put them down yesterday. So
That's all
probably
right. You still have a chance to increase the
I
height
could,
of the
I
grow
could
box,
try.
add some more material, but you will have to carefully remove them and put them in some container to keep them alive while you increase the height and
Increase the
plant
height.
them over. I'm sorry
Right?
that you have to do over that piece.
And I saw the same time, I saw, I went by Bicessa, and that's where I'm in San Fernando, and I bought celery, chive, and lettuce. The lettuce were kind of expensive. I just see 4, and that is like 2 weeks I saw them. I ain't seen nothing come up on the celery and chive. The lettuce, which is the like $18 a pack, I only saw like 4 little ones come up. And it's very, very small. And that is like 2 weeks ago I saw them. So that's like bad seeds.
Anybody want to comment on that? Sister Gabrielle, Brother James Williams.
Everybody. Um, the challenge with buying seeds in packets is they take seeds they have in a large tin that they sell from, and they might encourage you by telling you it's quality variety, but most times when they take the seeds out from those tins, it's already expired. A clue as to how long the original tin was existing and how long they packaged it. And even if they were good when they came out, the conditions under which they see in those paper packets allow for the deterioration
I'm
of
not getting
the
clear.
seeds. You poor quality
Bad reception.
readers are correct, and it some tracks because
Brother James, just hold on a minute, please.
I'm not getting
I think
reception.
I think it might be from your end because others are saying they're not hearing. I would
have a
My end, Natasha, you was hearing me? You hearing me?
I think it's your transmission, Brother James. Maybe I could ask someone else, maybe Gabriel, to repeat some of
all
what
right.
you're saying.
I'm hearing you clearly.
Yeah.
Right.
Try it
Okay,
again, James.
repeat. I can try to repeat a little of what he said. I don't know how much you heard, Christine. What he was saying is that most times the store owners have large tins of seeds. And what they do is they package them into small packets, sell them. And you may not know what's the expiry date or what date it was when they took it out the tin. So most times it could be that the seeds are not in the best of quality.
Okay, thanks. Well, I'll have to get some more. Thanks. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for that response. You could always get that information. We'll post, Sister Gabrielle, just remind me, we should post something a little more explicit on it on the group chat so that people can see that response again. But thanks for your contribution, Brother James, and thanks for assisting there, Sister Gabrielle. Any other question?
Hi, sir. Good evening.
All right.
Sir, can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes, I could hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. So I was inquiring about the calcium carbonate or the limestone at a agro shop, but I don't know how to apply it. And at the agro shop I went to, they said they only sell it in very large quantities that we have already set. Well, now would be a good time to spray some 30-10-10 or 20-20-20, if so.
Okay, so let me ask a question, Renata. Are you saying that you have mixed the soil already? Yes? You have
Which soil?
mixed the soil for the grow box already, right?
No, I was planting in the ground.
Or you planted
A
in the
raised
ground?
bed.
Okay, so you have gone to the stage where you have planted already, right?
I plant some lettuce and pak choi. I have the tomatoes that we were supposed to set still in the trays.
Okay, what might be reasonable for you to do is to be able to treat the mixture that goes into each plant hole. When you dig the hole for the plant, that soil that comes out that you're going to put back when you put the plant in could be treated with some limestone. I don't have an off-the-cuff measure, but we will get it from the literature and supply it to you, but it will not be more than about an ounce of limestone to each one of those holes. Okay?
Okay.
If you were broadcasting it on the whole bed, it would be a lot more. And know that limestone takes some time to act. So it's not an instant actor. And you really want to keep it within the root zone because that is where you want your results. The purpose of the limestone is to change the pH or the acidity of your soil, and you want that to happen in the root zone of the plant. So for a shallow plant, you want it shallow enough. For a deeper plant like tomatoes or peppers, you want it lower down. And there's a rate that we can give you if you have to treat a bed, but there's a rate we'll give you if you have to treat an individual planting hole for lettuce, let's say, or pak choi. Let that guide you for the time being, unless there's an additional comment anyone would like to make. The floor is open for any comments.
All right. Good night.
Hi, Brian.
Brian. I know you mentioned anthracnose, and that piqued my interest. I was advised to make sure and when I see it, spray with fungicide. And but I'm also told that every time you do spray, you change the fungicide because they adapt to whatever you're spraying. How true that is?
That is very correct, Brian. That is very correct. It all depends on the intensity of the fungus and other measures that you could take to make sure you have other collaborators in the picture for you. So do not overwater. Don't use infected tools. A lot of people use infected tools and they don't realize it. Sometimes even in harvesting pawpaw, your very fingers might be infected. So it's always important to put on either a glove or sanitize your hand. And then you wrap it. For instance, in the case of papaya, you wrap them individually as soon as you harvest them. There's also a controlled dip, a hot water control dip that you could use to prevent spores from germinating on the surface of the pawpaw. Sometimes you put a pawpaw to ripen, and you go back for it and say, oh my God, I didn't put this jumbie to ripen. How it turned like that? It gets very sunken and black, and that's anthracnose. So again, it's back to the intensity of the infection. Yes, it's good to keep your field clean, keep it controlled, move leaves that are infected and burn them, take them away from the garden. A lot of people endanger their crop by harboring all these things on the land, not realizing they're doing damage to their very crop. And that point you made is very valid about rotating your fungicide. Once you start using fungicide, you must rotate. At our little home garden level, we are trying to avoid the use of chemicals as far as possible in this initial stage. I've made some promises to different people who have asked me to conduct these courses that dealing with the family unit and dealing with the home scenario where you have babies and grandbabies, that we keep the household as safe as possible. We don't want to expose the children to these chemicals, and some of us are a little more concerned about healthy stuff and the stuff we eat. But yes, if it gets to that point in your commercial production where you must control fungus, I want to strongly recommend you share your experience with the qualified agricultural officers, agricultural assistants, and ministry staff, and let them guide you. Always be guided by what they have to tell you. All right. Sometimes
No, but
I just want
excuse
to add one more thing. Sometimes the shopkeeper may not have the advice that you should be getting. Sometimes. So be careful of that. Go ahead, Brian.
you were saying so. You were speaking something about the best ones to use are those that are the fungicide.
Yes, I did mention that if you must spray, use a copper fungicide because it's still very safe
That's
around
right.
children and in the household and for your fruits and around your backyard. Hopefully, if it is just a slight outbreak, it will control it for the duration of the crop. If, however, it persists, then I would want to get you to get some advice from your officers so that you use the next appropriate one to be able to rotate. The practice of rotating is very important, and I have noted it, and everyone should note it, but don't just rush into using your pesticides just yet.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, you're welcome, Brian. Brian, I know you have your cultivation, and that is probably a few years old, so you will have all kinds of fungus in your air, especially from other gardens, because fungus don't just remain in your garden, they blow in the wind, especially in dry season. The spore development takes place, the spores are picked up by the wind, and it blows. For those of you who see the banana leaves turning black, that black Sigatoga disease came actually from Venezuela. 15 years ago, it was cited in Cedrus. The country took some time before they accepted it was black Sigatoga.
Apparently, Mr. Gaindra got bumped off. So if you want to ask your questions, Mr. Williams and I can try in his absence as far as possible to see if we can answer your question. James, are you there? James? Just unmute James. So Ava, go ahead and ask a question. You not unmute yourself, Ava.
Yeah, I was saying I plant some kale and I have some batchaks eating down my kale. But I sprayed it with some vinegar and water and they're still eating it. So I don't know what to use now.
Are you hearing me? Gabby, are you hearing me?
Yes, clearly.
All right. For the person who spoke about the kale and the batchaks, there are more than one formulation. I can't give you a brand name, but there's something called batchak bait. You just go to the agri shop and ask for batchak bait. And what you do is try and make sure your hand doesn't touch the bait because they sense that. And make sure you place it probably in a bamboo or PVC pipe so it doesn't get wet, because when it gets wet, it gets soggy and they wouldn't pick it up. And place it anywhere you see them moving around. Thankfully or not so thankfully, batchaks used to work only at the night time and you would have to trace them nighttime. But now you see them moving around daytime, so you can get a fair idea as to where they're coming from. And they'll take up the batchak bait as long as you put down the batchak bait and you check regularly and they are still eating it. It means there's still sufficient numbers around to create problems. Once you see after a period of time, you're still seeing bait there after 2 or 3 days, it means that they would have taken it to the colony and you may have wiped out the colony. I think I hope that suffices.
So I can put in batchak bait in something between the plants?
Yes, you could. Once you could get it inside of a PVC pipe or a piece of bamboo or a tube, they will be attracted to it. They'll get in. You don't want it to get wet and you don't want to touch it.
Okay. Okay then, thank you.
Yeah.
Rosetta Lynch, you go ahead and unmute. Mr. Granger is back. So you can go ahead and ask your question, Rosetta.
Pleasant afternoon, everybody. Right. So my husband and I, we just do agricultural work, not on a big scale, but some of the tricks that what we learned, I would like to share it with some of you as well. Like, let's say for tomatoes or pak choy, things like that for your backyard gardening. What we do, even though we're going to transplant to, let's say, the natural ground instead of the grow box, what we do, we know it have people selling manures and passing around selling manure. What we do, we purchase some of the manures, and when we go to transplant it, instead of just putting it from the tray into the ground, we put some of the manure in the ground first, so you know that the plant itself not touching the raw dirt, as to say. And by doing that, all our produce thus far does come out real good. The produce and thing does be real good. So in terms of, I know the batchak love the pak choy and the cabbage. They love to use these things. And what we did, although we use the batchak bait as well, we use diesel, and that kind of keep not diesel on the plant, but just store it away, stand away from the grow box. And the scent from the diesel kind of keep away the batchak or any other little bugs from eating your plants. So I'll just share a little trick. You might try it and it might work for you. So, you know, but what I discovered too, even planting, there are a lot of earthworms, plenty earthworms. And I don't know if that could cause, let's say the banana I'm planting, sometimes see the trees and them just falling down from the underneath. Even though they got deep enough hole, let's say the breeze, they get strong breeze, they keep just blowing down. So I don't know what we could do for that. Thanks.
I could probably help
I
a
lost
little bit.
internet connection on at the home here. So I'm using my phone. Sorry, I couldn't come in with my picture. Go ahead, James.
Yes, we need to be careful about the terms we use sometimes because we might say earthworm, and there's a specific term that earthworm in agriculture relates to. Earthworms, as we know it in agriculture, are those long red worms that don't really have any negative impact. In fact, they are very positive. When you see them, you know that your soil is doing well. But yes, the worms that you see in the soil as a result of the toppling of those trees are not what we call earthworms. They are the larvae of the borer. And the borer is a beetle that bores the stem of the plant, goes in, and the larva feed on the root. And eventually, because there's a very poor root system, the plant topples. And a lot of times it topples when it is in fruit. So you'll find a plant that is about to give you a nice bunch just toppling because the weight of the fruit as it falls pulls the tree down. The way to deal with that is to ensure that you start off with disease-free plants, and you could know that by looking at when you plant the suckers. If you see black spots on the corm, you know that the worm burrowed in, and what you have to do is, even if you have the black spots, you need to pare or cut off as much as possible to expose that and soak it in well, again, because we want to be using safe chemicals, what you could do is buy the black disinfectant and soak it for about 20 minutes or so, and then plant, and you could spray the soil, the planting hole with the black disinfectant, and monitor, keep the soil around the plant clean, and make sure your plant is properly nutrified, so you're giving it good nutrition, so it will be able to fight off the disease. But the essential thing, the essential thing is to make sure you start off with clean suckers, because you could be bringing the pest in, and you start off the plant with a pest problem.
That's so true. In fact, if you have an old field of bananas, it's highly likely you have a colony of these beetles in your field, and one might want to take it the extra mile of setting traps for the beetles to reduce the population. But that's a big problem. That's a big problem in banana cultivation. The point that was made about putting the manure in the hole is excellent. That will always work. I saw a hand up a while ago. Whoever is next, go ahead.
Rosetta had her hand up again. Do you have another question?
No, I was just mentioning that I wasn't hearing.
Oh, okay. As I said, maybe you have to check your device because we were hearing him clearly. Are you hearing us better now?
Yes, thanks.
Okay then.
Let me just make a point to support what Mr. Granger was talking about earlier about using the calcium or the calcium carbonate lime to ensure that you have calcium in the soil and to also alkalize the soil. It is a fact that when you put ashes in your soil, you actually increase the alkalinity of the soil. In other words, you reduce the acidity in the soil. Now we have to balance where we get ashes from, because if you're burning off your planting, your material that should be rotten to bring back humus to the soil, to get ashes to nutrify the soil, and you're creating the problem to start with. But if you have to burn anything at all, once it's not things like plastic and whatnot, that ashes that comes, the residue from the burning, could be saved, so you could put it in your planting hole, and that gives you a cheap source of alkalinity rather than having to buy lime. And as in support of Mr. Granger, limestone may not give you the benefit in the crop that you're applying it on. It may very well be the succeeding crop, and if you don't know that, you may tend to think that your limestone did not work. If you want to get more instant action, I would suggest that if you could get the ashes, That may give a quicker response because the ashes is very powdery as opposed to having to use the limestone. I guess you may have to do a little crushing.
Any other questions? Anyone else have a question?
Jiren.
Marva, do you have a question?
Oh, good night.
night.
What I want to find out, if the batchak bait not working, what else could I use? Because right now, I feel I have all the batchak by me. And they eating my okras, the okra tree. The okra tree, them only have flowers, no leaves.
All right,
I
let me
don't
just
know.
give a word on the batcha. Batcha could really ruin your crops, eh? Are you all hearing?
Yeah.
I don't have all my control zone on
Yes,
the
I'm
phone.
hearing.
So just to
Yeah,
make sure
yeah,
you're
yeah.
hearing. If
We hearing.
if you have the plant in plant pots, so that there are two different things here, plant pots versus the open ground. If you have plants in pots and they've been attacked by the batchak, you are a little bit lucky because you could apply a band of grease around the pot, and when the batchak climbs the pot and they get to the grease, they turn back. However, if you're out in the open ground, you're at the mercy of the batchak really. And the only thing to help there is to put down the bait. One of the things I used once, I'm not quite sure, I didn't follow up with the results. Batchak love citrus peels. So if you could put your hand on some citrus peels, dry citrus peels, and you put it along their trails, they will take the citrus peels to their nests. The bait could be rather expensive depending on the size of the nest. In fact, one researcher at UWI who did his PhD on batchaks found right in Trinidad, in South Trinidad in particular, a batchak nest that was half a mile wide. You could imagine how much bait it will take because the more bait they carry, the more bait they need. But if you put an alternative, they will take the alternative rather than your crop. So you have to use different measures to help you with your situation.
I don't know what else to do now because I use a lot of things and it ain't working.
Okay.
As I said, I have the batchak, the batchak house by me. Because right now I have stick.
All right. I understand that too well.
But the fruit and the Portugal and they eating everything. Everything. Even stick to the air.
Yeah. In fact, because they love citrus so much, in citrus fields, we always recommended the farmers to put Portugal on the outside. Reason is, although they like citrus, they don't like Portugal. But I see a raised hand, Brian.
Yes, Brian, you have something to say?
Input. Yes.
Yes. So speaking about the batchak, I know some people they attack the colony, they attack the nest and they put diesel and things like that. So I don't know if that helps.
Yes, that helps. In fact, when they put diesel, they also try to blow the nest.
Yes, I was about to say that. And I have another farmer who did that from the nest, from the hole, and put diesel and light it and blow up the whole thing. But then you have to be careful where you're blowing up.
Yep, you have to be very careful. So if it is that bad, maybe you should have an officer visit and give you a recommendation.
Yeah, because I need somebody because they're working whole day and whole night.
Excuse. There's a difference with diesel and kerosene. The diesel you stand a better chance. Kerosene, I think that's the one that would light up and cause more problems.
Okay, I take your word, but it is not something to play with. So I want to recommend you seek the professional advice from your officers.
I would further suggest that she probably has some tracking to do. If they're that persistent, I am wondering if they're not somewhere close by. Because if they were far, they'd probably be affecting other people and you may be hearing complaints. So if you could do some tracking, you might be able to find the source of the problem and deal with the source, because based on what you're saying, you're having a lot to deal with. So you probably might be just dealing with those that coming out and coming by you, but you're really not dealing with the problem at the source. So probably you need to do a little bit of tracking, do a little bit of detective work, find out where it's coming from. And depending on the size, you'll know whether you could use batchak bait or you could burn the nest as is suggested.
Follow the trail, Marva, to see if you can find where the nest is.
Yeah,
Follow
but they're coming from by myself, but Gabriel, you know, in the back by me. It's in the back by me they're coming from. I don't know how far they go, but I reach a certain distance, I cannot go down in them rest of bush. And going real far, they're moving real far. Like they have a house. Somebody say it have a big house somewhere in the back there. But it's too much and I cannot go down in the back there. Only laughing, if only come by me, only will see. It's a, I don't know what to do again. They're eating everything.
Yeah, I don't doubt you if you're hearing me, because I'm getting some problems here.
Yes, we're hearing you.
I remember as a boy growing up on my father's farm, every time I go to feed the animals, I'd see batchak. It was amazing. They'd take the, we used to buy a blend, different blends to make our own feed. And we'd buy something called Midland. I think it was pea bran and wheat Midland. And they'll be taking that from the drums. And we found out in the end, they had their nests. Our pens were built out of bricks. And then we had that infrastructure with the pens inside the shed. And they were making their nests in the brick holes. So it's amazing spots they would find to develop their homes. And who knows, it might be right there in your own yard. So you'd really want to follow them in the night. They don't get disturbed if you shine a flashlight. Or if you're comfortable doing it in the hot sun in the day, follow them and see where they're going. There is certainly a big house. They have a mansion. And they have to feed all the babies.
By me, they have a mansion.
And they have to feed all the babies.
They have a mansion because I don't know, boy. If you see them batchak in action.
Well, when you get the intelligence.
I just had to leave them because everything I use, nothing not working on these creatures. I asked it, go to send it somewhere else because I'm fed up.
Nah, he will give you the solution. I think that is the SEPI. You continue searching and you will get the SEPI. Who knows? You might get a breakthrough that you will share with all of us.
Why? I feel I get no breakthrough with them batchak, boy.
All right.
Okay, anybody else have any other questions or comment? Thank you. Those of you who asked questions so far and shared your insight. Anybody else?
Yes, good afternoon. Yes, I planted some beds of pimentos and they got mites on it. So I had to get rid of the mites. I'm not sure if I did the correct thing because I just sprayed down all the trees and then with paraquat. So I wanted to know if I did the right thing or how should I treat with these mites if they appear, if I see them again. Thanks.
Well, it'll be useful for you to take a picture of the mites and send it to us so we could identify as mites you have on the leaves. Normally they're on the underside. I could tell you the paraquat would have killed everything. kill both the plant and the mites.
Yes, it killed everything.
Yeah, paraquat is really a weedicide. Okay, so you would have killed the plant with the paraquat.
Yeah, because I wasn't sure how to deal with the mites. They were on all the I had about 5 beds of pimentos on all the trees. So
sorry to hear that, but please, if you all have to use any chemicals, consult with your officers. They know this stuff. They'll be able to guide you. Okay, don't just come up with a fancy chemical that you want to use and spray. It could be deadly both for you as well as the crop. All right. And some of these things, I wish you all could put it on the chat group while we have the course running so that you could get more information. Agriculture is very broad. It could cover a whole lot of things, but we try to help you as much as we can in this short course that we're doing. All right, if there are no more questions, I just want to let you know I will consult with Gabrielle after tonight's class to determine our next assignment. Note that we are preparing a certificate for you. Only those who come to every session and show their face and do the assignments will get their certificates. So be prepared to be on set, to show your face, to interact, and to do the assignments if you have to get your certificates. All right? All right, everybody?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Well,
Yes.
thanks for coming.
Before
Before we end, I turn you over again to our host, Gabrielle, who would do the closing.
Just before you close, I just want to endorse visiting the ministry's office, the extension officers for advice. And if you choose not to visit or you're unable to visit, you can call. I can just off my head give the numbers for the Nerva Miaro County office is 644-2326. And for the Victoria County office is 655-3428. The video that Mr. Granger showed earlier on, when you get the recording, I saw at the end of the video, they gave the numbers for all the county offices. So whichever one is closest to you. So if you're unable to come in and actually physically talk with an extension officer on our office day on a Wednesday, you can try calling and you should be able to get assistance as well. Renata, I see you're asking about the hydroponics. What exactly on the class? What are you asking? We had hydroponics class last session. What?
We were trying to organize for a live class to see how to put together the stuff.
Oh, okay. Mr. Granger, have you had any word from Salim about that?
Not yet, but we'll coordinate between now and Monday and see what we could come up with, and we'll inform the class.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. There's also the possibility, and we're doing the groundwork to find out how possible it is for us to actually set up a system in which I will ask all of you to contribute in kind as well as your time and talent to have it running, to have a hydroponic system running in your area where you could all contribute and benefit from it and continue to learn. But all of that is being developed right now on the ground to find out how possible it could be, because it would involve some financing as well as all of us getting together to put it together and to have first-hand knowledge as to how it would operate and how we would harvest going down the road and that kind of thing. Okay?
Thank you. Okay, so if there are no more questions or comments, Sister Manzano, I see your mic is unmuted. Can you close us in prayer, please?
Good evening, everyone. So sorry, Mike. This particular tablet I'm using, the camera is not working. I tried, so I'm so sorry, yes. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for bringing us here this afternoon. We thank you for the information. It was so valid. We want to bless our teachers, the individual teachers, all who are on platform, we thank you so much, and we ask you, Lord, that you will continue to help us to put all these relevant demonstration to practice. I've seen in my own little corner that I've tried some of it and it's working. I want to thank you so much for our teachers and our presenters. Bless us and continue to help us to truly represent you and to share with others what we have learned for Christ's sake. Amen.
Amen. So until next Thursday, remember you can ask your questions, send your pictures, send your concerns in the chat. Someone would respond, somebody else will also learn as we share information. So until next Thursday, keep well and keep safe. You're free to unmute your mic and say hi to one another.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one little piece, if I may, to the lady with the batchaks. If you're going to start over some plants, you could try this. You get some, you know, those little cans that they sell when they sell peas in cans or milk pans. So when you plant the okra or the pepper or the tomato at that seedling level, make sure there's a can around it. And then when the batchaks are ready to come for the flowers, you put just a layer of grease around the pan, on the pan itself, either on the lip of the pan or around it. When the batchak come and they try to climb, they will meet the band of grease and turn back. Hopefully you don't have any leaves or branches touching the ground where they could get onto the plant through that bridge, so to speak. It is recommended for high price crops, but I mean, I realize you are at the mercy of the batchaks. A million batchaks against you. You might want to try something just for the sake of having some okras and tomatoes. All right. So the floor is open for everybody to greet and say hi.
Good night, everyone.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good
night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Good night,
everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Mama, how you going, girl?
Thanks for the presentation.
You're welcome.
Night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Gabriel, did we forget to say anything about the seeds? Or we're not ready for that?
Not sure yet.
Okay, all right. We want to make sure that those seeds can germinate, even if it goes to the people in the class.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks for coming. Good to see you, Lincoln.
Okay, good night.
Yep.
I'm kind of surprised nobody didn't mention anything about this inclement weather that we have with this heat. That did some damages to my lettuce produce. So I had to actually go back to the drawing board. So maybe we could probably discuss that a bit next time.
Yep, certainly we could. Yeah, we can. Thanks,
Thanks
James,
for
for
wonderful
lending up your time. Thanks, Gabriel. Thanks for the suggestion, Lincoln.
And we will post the recording on the chat, so those persons who missed, so if you want to go back,
always have all kind of
have
things.
that.
What is here? Take you like a real ass boy.
Good night. Good night, everybody.
Good night, James. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Okay, yes. You could sign us off. Thanks again very much.
You're welcome. Just give them a chance to finish and then I'll sign off.
Okay.
Leon.
Yes.
The person who just spoke the weather about the weather. I don't know. It might affect some people, but me, it's the best weather ever.
All right. That will make for useful addition to the conversation when we discuss it.
Yeah, because why the rain could fall as well. The worst flood it had for the beginning of the year. That didn't harm me. That did me well.